Hey guys, tonight we embark on a journey that traverses the timeless expanses of Greek myths, centered on a tale that has captured imaginations for centuries. Picture yourself under a starlit sky, the gentle whispers of ancient stories rustling like the softest silk, drawing you into a world where gods and mortals collide in contests of skill and hubris. This story, much like the others within the vast tapestry of Greek mythology, holds the promise of intrigue, wisdom, and a hint of divine comedy. You probably won't survive this without finding a favorite god or grinning at the folly of humanity, or the gods, for that matter. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. As the whispers of ancient stories wrap around you like a cozy blanket, you find yourself transported to a time where myths were not just tales, but reflections of human nature, aspirations, and fears. These stories have a way of lodging themselves into the very essence of cultural consciousness, proving that, surprisingly, we've always been rather fond of drama and divine tête-à-têtes, even before the latest reality TV show. The Greek myths, in particular, teem with gods whose lives are as chaotic as the mortal ones they often meddle with. They reside atop Mount Olympus, a place that, to ancient Greeks, rivaled any modern luxury resort mixed with some royal family drama. Now, historians still argue whether Olympus was ever envisioned as a physical place or purely metaphorical. However, it's depicted as a grand palace above the clouds, home to gods who are part omniscient, part soap opera cast. These deities were filled with pride and wisdom, traits immortalized in stories passed down through generations. But don't let their divine status fool you. Gods like Zeus, the thunder-wielding head honcho, often showcase behavior more fitting of a mischievous sitcom character than a celestial ruler. It's said he could switch from all-powerful Lord of the Skies to full-on melodrama in the blink of an eye. The god's monumental pride often set the stage for learning, albeit harsh, lessons for all involved. Enter Athena, a goddess of impeccable wisdom, yet occasionally impulsive decisions, hinting that even wisdom needs a pinch of humility every now and then. Athena wasn't just the goddess of wisdom. She represented war strategy and handicraft beauty too. Talk about multitasking. Goddesses had to wear a lot of hats back then, metaphorically speaking, since literal hats probably didn't suit Athena's battle-ready aesthetics. Revered throughout Greece, Athena's birth was the stuff of divine miracles and Oedipal surprises, a tale of her emerging fully grown from Zeus's forehead, showcasing an entrance as dramatic as it is unsettling. Now, if you thought Athena's feats were monumental, wait till you meet Arachne, a mortal girl whose talent on the loom caught her divine attention. Arachne was not just any weaver, but a maestro whose fingertips wove tales as if whispering secrets through threads. Unlike many of her mortal peers who aimed to appease the gods, Arachne's connection to her art was as independent as her spirit, qualities that both fascinated and vexed those who knew her. Her pride in her work was great, perhaps too great. And if Greek myths have taught us anything, it's that hubris tends to be a character flaw as timeless as storytelling itself. In a moment of daring bravado, or maybe folly, depending on who you ask, Arachne made a rather controversial claim that her weaving surpassed even that of Athena's. You can almost hear the dramatic gasps echoing through the ages. To boast superiority over a goddess was akin to poking a sleeping bear. Arachne's claim set into motion a series of events leading to an encounter of mortal and divine skill, a weaving contest that would test not just craftsmanship, but the very threads of humility versus pride. And so, the looms were set, each one a stage for a contest woven both in tangible threads and intangible pride. The atmospheres on both Mount Olympus and Earth brimmed with anticipation as the divine challenge began. For Arachne, the stakes were personal. For Athena, they were a matter of divine honor. Not since the epic stories of Iliad has the tension between mortals and gods been this palpable. The stage is set, the looms readied, and as each moment passes, the anticipation in the air thickens, almost visible to those who dare to watch. You begin to wonder, if ancient Greeks had popcorn, would they be munching away in bated excitement, or was this more a nail-biting sort of scenario? Whatever the case, our story has only just begun, and much like the threads on those looms, its tapestry will unravel in unexpected ways. Imagine gazing up at the imposing peaks of Mount Olympus, where the ancient air seems to whisper age-old secrets right into your ear. Stretching high above Greece, this mountain range doesn't just showcase the grandeur of jagged rocks and verdant slopes. It serves as the fabled home of the gods themselves, a place most mortals can only dream of laying eyes upon. It's like being invited to an exclusive celebrity party, but the guests are infinitely more powerful and notorious. And it seems everyone has something to say about Mount Olympus. Some historians still argue whether its depiction as an actual location or merely a metaphor for divine society makes it more fascinating. Not that Zeus ever worried whether he lived in a metaphor. Just like that one high school friend who kept emphasizing how above it all they were. The gods of Mount Olympus preside over the realm of humans with both an elevated sense of grandeur and the occasional whimsy only seen through divine eyes. As you place yourself on Olympus' sacred ground through the tapestries of your imagination, you'll find that just climbing its heights can be exhausting, even without the help of a stairmaster. Imagine doing so in a toga. Look around. This isn't just a regular mountain. This is a veritable celestial commune, where gods lounge around sipping ambrosia and engage in enigmatic affairs. At the center of it all is Zeus, the thunderbolt-wielding patriarch, prone to tossing lightning as a means of asserting his rather tempestuous authority. Just picture him like a father figure who prefers to communicate via dramatic electrical displays, quite unlike the quiet, self-help book-reading dads we know today. In contrast to Zeus' stormy outbursts stands his wife, Hera, hostess of the divine household. While she is often praised for her beauty and power, let's just say family dinners with Hera weren't exactly filled with laughing moments and home-baked cookies. She could be as chilly as Athena's wisdom is sharp, particularly when her husband's many transgressions came to light. Their relationship was more like a classic TV sitcom minus the laugh track, with plenty of divine drama that defied mere mortal imagination. Speaking of Athena, she's more than just another member of this divine pantheon, rounding out the celestial lineup like a cosmic draft pick. Athena, the goddess of wisdom, courage, and warfare strategy, stands out with her alabaster statue-like poise and undeniable aura of authority. Forget about pale imitations or cinema reboots. Athena's influence dominates not only myth, but also monumental historical significance. Did you know that the Parthenon, standing gracefully atop the Acropolis of Athens, was dedicated to her? A massive structure that has weathered the storms of history and tourists' camera flashes alike. It acts as mute testimony to her eternal presence. One quirky ancient tidbit involves Athena's birth, which reads more like a plot twist you'd find in a soap opera. Sprung fully grown and armored from the head of Zeus. A feat surely worthy of an epic entrance, if ever there was one. The theatrics of Mount Olympus often make the stuff of our lives look positively pedestrian. And imagine, a headsprung warrior with insight to rival Plato. No wonder historians debate whether Athena's sudden entry into the world was designed explicitly to mark her as uniquely cerebral among gods and mortals alike. Beyond Athena's unparalleled wisdom and her love for Athens, a city she won patronage over by gifting the olive tree, mind you, her contribution to war often strikes a chord with those dwelling in the ancient narratives. You can think of her as that reassuring voice inside your head reminding you to stay cool and collected, even when you feel like flipping your table over during a Monday morning meeting. On Olympus, each god embodies traits tying them to both mundane and cosmic disputes, both relatable and utterly unattainable. From the eternally youthful Apollo gallivanting in his golden chariot, singing favorite tunes across the starry sky, to Demeter, bringing forth bountiful harvests you might wish for when grocery shopping, you'll find a celestial hierarchy rich with pride, vanity, and incomparable talent. Ancient stories like these carry the musings of humanity itself, pondering life's many layers upon layers of meaning, like the vestiges of old glue left on your favorite office mug after removing particularly stubborn motivational stickers. There's a reason the Greeks weave these powerful beings into their mythology with such finesse and wit, embedding the grandeur of Mount Olympus and its diverse inhabitants deeply into the annals of lore. After all, how else could people, ancient and modern alike, connect seemingly earthly concerns to stories as grand as these? True, gods had their rivalries and affairs, but there was always room for a good competition because, let's face it, how boring would divine eternity be without the odd contest? So, why not a weaving challenge between a goddess and a mortal girl? The roster of Mount Olympus might have looked upon this unfolding with their usual detached curiosity, but the spectacle was set to become timeless, merging the lives of mortals and gods, all set against this majestic mountain backdrop. There on Olympus, at the nexus of divine ambition and mortal endeavor, tales like the contest between Athena and Arachne are given life. They are stories woven into the fabric of time itself, much like the intricate tapestries that tell their saga, each thread whispering secrets to be unraveled by those who dare listen. Now, get comfortable. There's much more to this extraordinary tale awaiting to unfold, an intricate dance between hubris, art, and the everlasting legacy of myths spun with the threads of all that is human, and a touch of the divine. Imagine, if you will, the ethereal realm of Mount Olympus, where the air is crisp and filled with the intoxicating scent of ambrosia. Here, among towering clouds and celestial splendor, dwell the Greek gods, eternal beings of unmatched power and, frankly, some intriguing personality quirks. Standing apart from the Olympian crowd with her air of composed intellect is Athena, the goddess of wisdom, whose thoughts weave through the very fabric of reality with the precision of an artisan at her loom. Athena, known for her astute understanding and strategic mind, embodies the very essence of intellect and wit. Not just a powerhouse on Olympus, she's also a patron of various mundane yet significant arts, like weaving. If you ever found yourself in need of wisdom, or say, a handy guide for overcoming embarrassing faux pas, Athena would be your unlikely, mythological contact. Historians still argue whether she had the ancient equivalent of a hotline, but honestly, a goddess of her stature surely had a way to keep her finger on the pulse of mortal affairs, perhaps with a bit of divine magic. Picture her among the gods, offering sagacious counsel during meetings that, we presume, could have easily devolved into squabbles over who had the better orchard of golden apples. The daughter of Zeus, Athena's origin holds a mythic flair that could put superhero backstories to shame. Born fully armored, she sprang forth from her father's forehead after he experienced what might be the mother of all headaches, prompting, dare I say, a god-sized need for aspirin. This dazzling debut set the precedent for her lifelong association with both war and wisdom, a duality that few could master, but Athena bore with grace. Now, I know what you're thinking. Isn't she also the goddess of war? Indeed, Athena's prowess extended to the art of battle, but her approach was more strategic, unlike her brother Ares, who preferred the, let's call it, less diplomatic side of warfare. Athena's intervention in conflicts often meant cunning plans rather than brute force. She was known to be a supporter of heroes, guiding legendary figures like Odysseus with her clever strategies. Imagine being on the receiving end of her sage advice. They say you could almost hear the gears turning in her head as she devised the most ingenious solutions to seemingly insurmountable problems. But let's not get too carried away with her warlike attributes. Athena is equally celebrated for her contributions to civilization and the arts. In fact, she's credited with inventing numerous useful things, from the plow to the flute. Though the invention of the flute didn't quite stick to her resume, the less than relaxing sound it produced may have led her to gracefully sidestep that claim. Yet, her interest in music didn't quite match the fervor with which she embraced weaving, a craft she mastered with an unparalleled passion. Her tapestries were said to be divine creations, telling epic stories of gods and mortals entwined in fate, love, and occasionally, tragic misunderstandings. Athena's name itself bears a connection to Athens, the city she famously guarded. A fierce competition with Poseidon determined the city's protector, where Athena's gift of the olive tree, symbolizing peace and prosperity, sealed her role as the city's favored deity. It's worth noting that, like a seasoned diplomat, She knew how to win hearts and minds without resorting to Poseidon's classic, "I'll give you a splashy water source," which, let's face it, would have proven more high maintenance than it was worth. In the pantheon of Greek deities, Athena stands out not only for her wisdom and fairness, but also for her underlying humanity. Despite her divine status, she was not immune to moments of divine irritation, particularly when mortals forgot their place. Take, for example, her remarkable patience straining when, purely hypothetically, a mortal girl called Arachne suddenly claimed to surpass her in weaving. But let's not jump ahead to the mortal claims just yet. Athena's narratives in Greek mythology are etched not just in the grandeur of her exploits, but in subtle lessons on humility and intellect. Her very presence infused wisdom into the mundane and spiritual alike, creating a bond between her divine inclinations and the lives of those who worshipped her from below. Perhaps you can sense how every breeze across a Grecian olive grove might just carry the whisper of her wisdom, less a direct intervention and more an ambient guide for those mired in the complexities of life. But just remember, if you think you're the best at something, and a wise, centuries-old goddess who sprang from a god's head fully armored decides to put you to the test, perhaps it's time to reassess. After all, whom among us hasn't had their bravado tempered by a dose of unexpected, albeit enlightening, divine reality? In the half-light of ancient Greece, where myth and reality blur like ink and water, you find yourself introduced to a tale that, despite its age, remains as intricately woven into the fabric of storytelling as any celebrated epic. A story that doesn't need Zeus' thunderbolts to draw attention, but rather the simple, deliberate craft of a loom. Here enters Arachne, a mortal girl whose nimble fingers and abundant talent in weaving are renowned far beyond her humble origins. Close your eyes, if you will, and imagine the soft rustle of threads being pulled through a loom, a sound as soothing as a gentle breeze rustling through a field of linen. Arachne hails from the region of Lydia, a name that might ring a bell if you've ever dabbled with the origins of classical antiquity. Known in some circles as the inventor of coinage, Lydia was a place steeped in innovation. It's fitting, then, isn't it, that a girl with such a penchant for reinventing the ordinary hailed from there? Her deft hands evoke imagery of sunsets trapped in silk, the kind of artistry that doesn't just make you marvel, but might make you wonder if she'd spun strands of dreams into reality. In tiny workshops, where sunlight dapples the wooden floors, she weaves tales without words, each pattern a whisper of something profoundly human. And oh, how the townsfolk love to gather and watch, always leaving a little more awed and a little more envious than they care to admit. How can such mortal hands create what seems divine? They wonder aloud, sipping watered-down wine from clay cups. True connoisseurs of creativity, or so they'd like everyone to believe. Arachne's connection to the art of weaving is profoundly personal. It's not merely her craft, it's her dialogue with the universe, each thread a line of her life's poem. If only Instagram had existed back then, her stories would be thread-perfect with more followers than even that pesky Athena could boast. Speaking of whom, Athena, the goddess of wisdom, crafts, and various admirable traits that put most resumes to shame, casts her watchful eye upon the mortal world. Scholars still debate why gods feel the need to meddle in mortal affairs. Perhaps an inherent detachment from the everyday leads them to vicariously savor the varied color of human folly and triumph. Back to Arachne. Now, it's important to note how her sense of accomplishment begins to crescendo, akin to a symphony swelling towards a grand finale. Arachne's tongue grows as mighty as her tapestry, and let's just say she isn't shy about voicing her truth. She declares, I can weave better than anyone, god or mortal. A bold claim in any epoch, but especially bold when the divine eavesdrop on a regular basis, listening with ears tuned finely to the frequency of hubris. Her friends raise their brows, the local sheep bleat in disdain or indifference. Historians still argue the psyche of ancient sheep, and you might find yourself whispering, "Oh, sweet summer child, what have you done?" While we pause for dramatic effect, let's toss in a sprinkle of a quirky tidbit. Did you know ancient weavers often counted crows as good omens? So while you might call them clever little avian weavers of fate, Arachne seemed less interested in omens and more in the shapes and shadows she could command onto cloth. Her little workshop, buzzing with needless bravado, becomes a stage where, unbeknownst to her, the major act is yet to come. That's where we leave Arachne for now, caught in her web of talent, tangled in public acclaim, and balanced precariously on the precipice of potential divine discovery. As her shuttles fly back and forth, she unknowingly seams together the threads that will soon embroider her name into the grand tapestry of myth. But for now, let her fingers move in peace, crafting a legacy one meticulous stitch at a time. As you drift into the misty world of Greek myths, close your eyes and let the gentle murmurs of ancient stories guide you. They weave through your mind like a gentle breeze, tugging at the edges of your consciousness. Among these timeless tales is one soaked in the allure of both the mortal and the divine, an intricate dance between a goddess and a girl, each confident in their realm, yet connected by the slender threads of their art. It's a story that teases the imagination with its blend of audacity, skill, and the whisper of what might have been. Perhaps a little bit like tuning into a drama series another friend recommended, the kind that's just on the right side of soapy. Now, imagine yourself somewhere a bit more tangible, a village amidst the rolling hills of ancient Greece. You hear the chatter and laughter of people, the clattering of looms, the rhythmic beat of life infused with simple elegance. In a small, sunlit workshop, we find Arachne, a mortal girl whose fingers move with dexterity that would put a world chess champion's brain to shame. Her skill with the loom is no mere hobby. It's an art form, a calling as vital to her as the air she breathes. Arachne isn't just good at weaving. She's the rock star of it, the David Bowie of threads, effortlessly transforming mundane yarn into something bordering on poetic. Her work is a visual feast, tapestries breathing with stories spun from the everyday struggles and triumphs of the human spirit. And, as pride does with any artist whose work wows the masses, it festers deliciously in Arachne. Every thread she weaves reinforces her belief that there's nobody on earth or above it who can surpass her skill, not even the lofty gods atop their cloud-kissed perch on Mount Olympus. But you know what they say about pride, don't you? If not, you can always count on Greek myths to remind you. This story doesn't unfold in isolation. Historically, weaving was a revered craft in ancient Greece. It was the bedrock of both economy and culture, where creating fabrics was not only essential, but virtually sacred. Consider this. Before Instagram influencers boasted about the latest couture, weaving kept both the populace dressed and the market bustling. Despite its quotidian nature, weaving was a laborious art respected even by the gods. Ironically, historians still argue whether ancient Greece's textile industry was overrun with divine interventions or just particularly blessed artisans with good PR. Enter Athena, the goddess of wisdom, war, and, fittingly enough, weaving. One of Olympus's most revered deities, she relished in the finer pursuits of both intellect and craft. Athena was said to have gifted humans their capacity for strategic genius and the kind of creativity one scribbles about in poetry and paints in frescoes. When you think of Athena, imagine her as both the CEO of strategy and the creative director of Olympus, imbued with a regal posture and a persistent gentle smile, no doubt aided by her own understanding of the latest omniscient fashion trends. Amidst whispers of her own greatness, Arachne's reputation grew in one innocuous day, or perhaps mischievous, depending on whom you might ask. She made a declaration that would make any modern-day Twitter storm blaze like wildfire. In a moment where confidence collided with divine hubris, she boldly claimed that her artistry surpassed even Athena's. Now, claiming such supremacy over a deity might sound like a staged reality TV confrontation, replete with dramatic theme music, but in that era, it was the kind of declaration that would reverberate through the fabric of both mortal and immortal realms. How this statement echoed through Greece. Some saw it as courageous, others foolishly daring. The few pragmatic souls in between surely remembered their sunscreen being a product of an ancient recipe involving crocodile dung. Fads were as old as time. And perhaps, in some parallel reality, Arachne's words would have been merely that, words. But these claims set in motion the threads of fate, binding Athena and Arachne on a collision course. It was less David versus Goliath, and more weaver versus goddess, each overshadowed with the possibility of immortal regret. While some historians ponder over the exact latitude of Arachne's weaving prowess relative to Athena's, debating whether her skills were truly divine or simply humanly impeccable, the stage was set. Whether driven by righteous indignation or curiosity, Athena heard this claim. And like any dignified goddess faced with a mortal asserting an extraordinary cheekiness, she decided that action was necessary. Because nothing spells a good afternoon on Mount Olympus like a bit of interactive mortal's hubris, it sure beats the pesky paperwork involved in intergalactic dainty dealings or fixing Herculean blunders. The beauty of mythology is in its wondrous elasticity, the way it morphs and dances with interpretations and conjectures over generations. It echoes through the minds of the yore and now, delicate yet solid. And in this particular tale, with Arachne's bold declaration, it dances with all its might, beckoning curious minds to follow along. So here we have two masters of the loom. A mortal girl who dared to claim her craft as unparalleled and a deity prepared to defend her celestial honor. Amidst the tangle of admiration, artistic fervor, and the tension born from such a notorious and audacious claim lies the beating heart of this myth. The tapestry of fate has been spun with marked attention to detail, where the appetite for skill clashes against the timeless power of the divine human spirit. As ancient myth begins to unravel over this bold proclamation, it leads us down winding paths bristling with lessons, deftly capturing both the fragility and wonder of human endeavor. Just another episode in the never-ending story of Greek mythology, where gods and mortals walk a shared path and leave behind whispers that time cannot bury. The stage is thus set, and our story lingers on the precipice of artistry confronting divine order. What will unfold from Arachne's chosen path will become a celestial dance, threading wisdom into the warp and weft of existence itself. You can almost hear it, the soft murmur of anticipation in the air, like the rustle of leaves on a cool autumn night. The decision to hold a weaving contest between Athena, the goddess known for her wisdom, and Arachne, a mortal girl with a bold claim as the best weaver in all of Greece, is more than just an event. It feels like a public spectacle in a sleepy amphitheater, where the gods may or may not casually drop by. After all, they're busy managing the cosmos. Picture Athena, poised and ever serene, her helmet gleaming with an understated "don't mess with me" vibe. And then there's Arachne, her loom rivaling her whole sense of self-worth, ready to put every boastful string theory to the test. Historians still argue whether this contest was an official act, declared by an order on some celestial scroll, or merely a decision made in the moment, sparked by Athena's pride being pricked one time too many. Either way, you're watching the cosmic equivalent of a heavyweight boxing match, only with textiles instead of turmoil. They don't teach you that in school, do they? The looms are set up side by side, marking the battlefield where myths will either unravel or endure. Looms, if you've never had the pleasure, are not the clickety-clack modern ones you might have seen in a Pinterest board dedicated to a failed DIY dream. No, these looms are immense structures, crafted from wood that might just whisper stories from its own rings about the ancient forests of Greece. Don't worry, no trees were harmed, much, in this divine pursuit. Encircling the arena, a gaggle of nymphs giggle and anticipate, while gods subtly maneuver themselves upon Mount Olympus, perhaps placing celestial bets behind ambrosia-laden clouds. Arachne does not shiver at the thought of going toe-to-toe, or thread-to-thread, with Athena. Instead, she wears a focus sharper than the needle in her hand, a woman on a mission to prove that mortals can hold their own against the divine. Athena, of course, brings not only technical prowess but a certain mystique to her work. She symbolizes more than skill. She is wisdom embodied, each decision on her loom as calculated as the movements of the stars. It's a little intimidating, honestly, like realizing your opponent isn't just intelligent, but effortlessly graceful and strong. The kind of person who probably excels at every board game and can parallel park on a busy street without breaking a sweat. Now that's a goddess you can't help but respect. Meanwhile, did you know that weaving in ancient Greece wasn't just a regular old craft? Oh no, it was the epitome of feminine precision and domestic diligence, kind of like what knitting became in contemporary times, minus the modern predilection to make sweaters for four-legged family members. Back then, weaving could be as intense as a political debate, with discussions about color palettes and patterns probably ranking up there with the latest exploits of Odysseus. For Arachne, this contest represents more than just personal pride. It's about mortal capability versus divine right, a chance to show that human creativity needn't always cower under the shadow of Olympian achievement. There's something deeply satisfying to consider the audacity that she possesses, the kind of self-assurance that predicts telling the strongest kid on the playground you can beat them in their best sport, and then actually showing up to try. The contest is set, and the loom stands like open book pages, each thread intricately woven into a narrative waiting to be read. Both Athena's and Arachne's fingers dance across them, weaving stories as disparate as their author's origins. In a way, it's like watching history being threaded into being, every choice on the loom quietly arguing for its own existence. One can only wonder if Athena side glances now and then, pondering if this mortal girl's audacity is born of foolishness or an unrecognized divine spark. In modern scholarly circles, debates simmer about whether what came next was a battle of artistry alone, or if it was also a meditation on the human condition told through threads of artistry. Yet, regardless of the philosophical undertones, you can't help but appreciate the drama of it all, a contest of egos, talent, and cosmic destiny played out on a wooden stage, forever etching itself into the threads of mythology. Here at the precipice of this contest, with the looms set and tales impending, you're privy to something extraordinary. What's hugged tighter than divine humility and mortal ambition, after all, can often be the most captivating of narratives. With the setup complete and the participants steely in their resolve, everything is perfectly poised on the edge. Now all that's left for you is to sit back, maybe munch on some celestial popcorn, and watch as this legendary story begins to unfold, thread by irreplaceable thread. As the dust settles and the anticipation builds, you find yourself standing beside Arachne, the gifted mortal weaver, in her humble workshop. The air is thick with excitement, and perhaps a smidgen of hubris, the kind of self-confidence that could make even the boldest mortals quiver or smirk. Remember that homemade ice cream you tried to make, convinced no gelato shop could top it? Arachne's challenge is akin to that, only less vanilla and more divine. Arachne's fingers dance across the fibers like a pianist on an old, well-loved piano. Her loom is a cacophony of clinks and whispers as it forms the very threads of mortal dreams. Each careful motion crafts a tapestry that outsiders might casually deem a fashionable rug at first glance. But as you settle in to observe, the nuances in the stories begin to reveal themselves, much like a secret whispered in the dark. The wool she uses is said to be spun from the finest local sheep, not dissimilar to the way historians spin endless yarns about the true origins of the Greek myths. Some claim the wool bore a sheen rivaling the stars, a poetic exaggeration typical of those chroniclers, and her dyes, extracted with painstaking labor, produced hues that shame the rainbow. The enchantment of her colors rivals even today's advancements in Technicolor cinema, though it's unlikely Arachne had a beef with Hollywood. With each passing moment, her tapestry unfolds with tales that celebrate the triumphs and trials of humanity. A ship sails valiantly upon a sea of indigo threads, a nod to the Argonauts perhaps, brimming with tiny heroes wielding embroidered swords. It's said these heroes had more courage stitched into their designs than some warriors ever had in reality. Another section of the tapestry captures the achievements of artisans who dared to defy time, masters of architecture that created wonders only whispered about in modern archaeological circles. Historians still argue whether Arachne's depiction of everyday life in ancient Greece was intended as social commentary. Was her work a loving homage to human ingenuity, or a rebellious statement on the follies of gods playing puppeteer to mortals? This remains a delightful point of academic debate, akin to debating the color palette of the Mona Lisa. Only Arachne's work may never hang in the Louvre. With a quirk of an eyebrow, you notice the hidden humor in Arachne's work. Nestled among her grand motifs are playful, almost satirical nods to the gods' quirks. Is that a wink to Zeus' infamous thunderbolt incidents, or perhaps a softly mocking reference to Dionysian revelries? If only ancient marathons could award gold for cheekiness. Remember how there was a time you cleverly hid doodles in your biology textbook illustrations, hoping only the attentive would catch your wit? Arachne is doing just that, with a slightly greater consequence than a note home from the teacher. Her tapestries represent not just art, but a woven testament to human experiences and stories often overshadowed by divine shenanigans. The mortals in her scenes are vibrant, their expressions so reassuringly relatable. A child grabbing a sweet sneaks through even the most epic of stories. It's always the little details that mirror life's truest experiences. Now let's sprinkle some historical tidbits for the curious minds, making the wonderment even more potent. Did you know that ancient Greek looms were not operated like our modern counterparts, but rather were vertical, requiring the weaver to stand? Imagine holding a yoga pose for hours while also crafting a masterpiece. Ladies in gym leggings, take note. Arachne was the OG of core strength. Returning to Arachne's workshop, you find that the room hums with a subtle tension, a buzz that emanates not from fear, but from the rapturous embrace of creativity meeting its potential match. The room sees no boundary, only infinite potential painted by threads and dreams. You might imagine that archaeologists, metaphorically seasoned with curious notions similar to unraveling a sweater to its original yarn, often dine on unusual trivia. For instance, it's been observed that the ancient Greeks believed in an ideal called arete, a concept blending excellence with virtue. Arachne's pieces, in a way, could be seen as her pursuit of arete, suggesting perhaps that through mastery of craft one might glimpse the divine, though, ironically, her saga teeters dangerously close to blasphemy. And thus, you stand there amidst the mortal threads of ambition, human experience, and divine rivalry. It's much like watching sports. Only here the stakes involve a potential transformation into an eight-legged creature instead of a mere loss of bragging rights. Will Arachne's bold woven narrative outrun the whispers of gods lurking on Olympus? In a universe so prone to mythic exaggeration, it seems anything is possible. Gently now, you're reminded that beneath these layers is a cultural biography of Greece, reframing the unpredictability of human drama and outlandish divine drama queens. Arachne's tapestry offers a glimpse of the historical interplay between art as an expression and art as a statement, each worthy of contemplation and a gentle smile. So, you lean back, almost feeling the weight of millennia on your shoulders, though today, it's more like a comfortable blanket, peppered with the warmth of ancestral wisdom. Who knew that exploring the threads of mortal dreams could weave such a captivating narrative, filled with both heroics and silent, sassy nods to eternity's most celebrated figures? As you find yourself settling deeper into this tale, you hover over Athena's creation, a divine piece of artistry that encapsulates the very essence of godly prowess and tales older than the hills. With a gentle hum of weaving threads, Athena's loom transports you with vivid scenes from Olympus, where the air itself seems embroidered with wisdom and power. Perhaps the set dressers from Hollywood learned a thing or two from her. Imagine a tapestry woven so richly that every deity's face shines with an ethereal glow, woven with threads finer than a social media influencer's carefully curated public image. In the center of this celestial artwork, Athena depicts the founding of Athens itself. Historians still argue whether this founding was the most significant event in the rise of classical civilization, or if it was just a divine flex from Athena to prove her guardianship over the city. The scene is a spectacular one, capturing the moment Athena gifted the olive tree to the people of Athens, a symbol of peace and plenty. While you might think it's the olive branch that inspired mankind over centuries, remember this little gem. The fruit of that divine tree led to olive oil, a staple in kitchens for everything from cooking to moisturizer, unlike crocodile dung, which remains wisely abandoned. Looking closer, you notice smaller vignettes surrounding the central theme, each more intricate than the last. Here, the gods gather in council on Olympus, their expressions ranging from haughty disdain to benevolent wisdom, probably debating whether to meddle in yet another mortal affair. It's like their version of a board meeting, with stakes that range somewhere between who brings the ambrosia snacks and who controls the fate of entire cities. The gods, portrayed in blinding gold thread, stand out against the dark blues and greens of the mortal world below, like constellations against the midnight sky. Some historians debate if these scenes were shaped by Bronze Age artistry or simply the fever dream of storytellers who knew the right way to spin a yarn. Meanwhile, posed in stark contrast to Arachne's human-centric tales, Athena's weaving exudes control and order. There's a clear message here, a reminder of the god's omnipotent reach, structured and unwavering, like Zeus' infamous quick trips involving thunderbolts and the casual reshaping of mountains. On one side of the tapestry, you see the tale of the Gigantomachy, where the gods battle the giants, proving once again the divine right to power. This scene is embroidered with dramatic tension and valor as deities with sculpted physiques, which would give today's fitness influencers a run for their protein shakes, clash with monstrous figures amidst swirling shadows. You can almost hear the whispers of the immortal muses who guide Athena's hands, each stitch capturing the very essence of myth and legacy passed down through the ages. Of course, not everyone is about that divine life. Never forget, even demigods have family drama fit for a daytime soap opera. Yet, in every thread, there's also a distinct air of confidence, an assertion that the gods' achievements are sealed in fate, unchallenged and absolute. This air of superiority perhaps hints at Athena's own perspective on the competition, nuanced and steeped in a wisdom that transcends the mere mortal understanding. As you observe the dazzling interplay of colors and the meticulous detailing, imagine how this tapestry would look in today's world. Maybe an eccentric billionaire would bid on it at an auction, or a savvy entrepreneur might turn it into a viral virtual reality experience. Just picture weaving yourself into an endless dance of myth and history. Meanwhile, let's consider the quirky tidbit. Greek gods were known for their competitive spirit, not unlike today's reality TV stars craving the spotlight. And here Athena, even in her divine elegance, shows us a hint of this competitive fervor, aiming not merely to best Arachne, but to reaffirm the cosmic order. The tapestry's folds tell unspoken stories, ones that are felt in the fabric of the piece more than seen. There's a subtle weight to the artistry, an unshakable reminder that this contest is more than just about determining skill. It's an epitome of a philosophical divide between mortals and the divine. Is it about creativity unbridled, as showcased by Arachne's depictions of the human saga? Or is it about structure, perfection, and the assertion of divine authority as Athena portrays? As your gaze softens, the woven divine landscapes continue to dance before your eyes, painting the mind's canvas with eternal themes that have transcended the boundaries of time. The myth asks a timeless question. Can human creativity, fueled by passion and imperfection, ever stand shoulder to shoulder with the crafted perfection of divine artistry? As you ponder this in the cozy confines of your imagination, know that this story has traveled through millennia, lingering like an echo of whispered secrets from the stars. And with that gentle reminder, let the thought ease you closer to slumber, as if rocked to the rhythm of Athena's weaving hands. In this dimly lit corner of history, where mortals dared to challenge gods and moths prepared to devour freshly woven tapestries, we find Athena and Arachne poised at their looms. The air is filled with the delicate rustling of threads, and you can almost smell the faint aroma of olive trees wafting down from Mount Olympus. Here, in the quiet intensity of this weaving contest, we are privileged spectators to an intricate dance of skill and narrative, with every thread bearing the silent weight of hidden messages. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of this mythic loom room, observing as Arachne's fingers move like the gentle flicker of a candle's flame, casting light on stories threaded with mortal ambition. Her tapestry unfurls stories that the local villagers whisper about late at night. You lean in closer, and you can make out scenes of human folly. Heroes overwhelmed by hubris, kings dethroned by their own temerity. It's as if Arachne's fingers are weaving an ancient version of a soap opera, rich with drama that even your modern reality TV stars couldn't script. In the meantime, Athena, whose wisdom is only matched by her competitive spirit, dismisses any distractions. Her movements are precise, a steady rhythm that echoes the boundless knowledge she carries. Athena's tapestry unfurls the grandeur of the gods, Zeus wielding lightning bolts with finesse, Apollo strumming ethereal tunes on his lyre. Yet, there's more than meets the eye. Historians still argue whether Athena intended to convey straightforward majesty or if there were layers of divine irony subtly stitched in. For instance, in a wink to her own cleverness, Athena might have included Hermes playfully pilfering Apollo's cattle, a tale known for its humor as much as for the deep lessons it teaches about mischief and consequence. With each interlacing of weft and warp, the tapestries absorb a dense tapestry of symbolism which historians can only hope to unravel fully. It's said, a quirky tidbit to ponder, that some believe Arachne's work was so detailed, it even indexed celestial events, an ancient attempt at journaling aligned with astronomical occurrences. If true, these woven stars would have twinkled alongside tales of gods and mortals, positioning Arachne not just as a master weaver, but perhaps as an ancient astronomer of sorts. Underneath Athena's depiction of Poseidon's watery escapades, a scholar might insist that Athena was making a subtle statement on divine power's whimsical nature, the way divine governance mirrored ocean waves in its unpredictability. Was her message about the gods' vanity or their vulnerability to human admiration and contempt? A question as unanswered as why the plugs of our modern sinks all seem to vanish when you need them most. A case of divine mischief in mortal affairs, perhaps? But let's not forget the tantalizing tales Arachne dared to weave. A scene might show a farmer besting Dionysus at a winemaking contest, or a clever maiden outsmarting Narcissus and his mirror. Such vignettes, peppered with irony and human resilience, suggest Arachne was weaving more than fabric. She was crafting a manifesto of mortal capability. Could this be why historians still argue over the intended boldness or naivety of her craft? When her tapestry shone forth the hubris of the gods, it asked a bold question. Where does power truly lie? With divine beings atop their celestial thrones, or with humans who persist under their capricious whims? To experience these woven stories, to feel the weight of each thread's tale, you don't need to be a thread count connoisseur. You feel the texture of craftsmanship that challenges even the works at Paris Fashion Week. Though, unlike certain high-end brands, Arachne had no need for influencers to validate her genius. Her tapestries spoke for themselves, resonating powerfully, eloquently, and defiantly. Standing alongside Athena, you might notice a whisper of a smirk on her lips. She sees the messages embedded in Arachne's work and recognizes the boldness required to craft them. Yet, Athena's own fabric holds secrets, too. Hidden within scenes are lessons on humility and the danger of prideful overreach. From a higher point of view, or perhaps a more satirical one, Athena could be snipping away at the oppressive hotline bling that mortal arrogance dials into when it embarks on its more audacious enterprises. With each shuttle's pass, threads of dialogue form, an ongoing conversation between the tapestries. The story they tell intersperses critique with whimsy, painting a vivid picture of mortal and divine interrelationships. Walking through the scene, you might catch a modern parallel, asking yourself, does grandeur invite admiration? Or, like an overpriced cup of coffee, does it sometimes stand as a testament to unnecessary extravagance? Amidst this artistic rivalry lies an unspoken bond of artistic understanding. Athena and Arachne, despite their contrasting origins, craft not only stories, but a collaborative oeuvre of mythic complexity. A dialogue emerges, one that explores the duality of power and vulnerability, hubris and humility. In their quiet contest, you find not just competition, but conversation. Like one of those family debates at Thanksgiving, minus the cranberry sauce, and with far fewer opportunities to change the subject to football. As you watch, the tapestries grow more than just themselves. They give birth to messages powerful enough to echo through ages. Like the ripples in a pond, much like those from Athena's sea adventures, every story weaves into the vast network of mythic narrative that shapes the human imagination. You need no scholarly volume to interpret these threads. They remain timeless, whispering wry insights into your ear, woven into the mythic fabric that cushions even our contemporary dreamscapes. So, let these tales of skill, pride, and the conversations hidden within the threads seep into your consciousness. Every thread is a note in a symphony that has reverberated through time. As you draw these narratives from looms entwined with ancient and divine thought, Perhaps you'll find a connection between the playful threads of these stories and the broader, vibrant tapestry of your own life. Now, heed these whispers and drift into realms where myth enlivens dreams, weaving life's own tapestry with threads spun from humor, humility, and history. The air is thick with anticipation as you imagine standing amidst an ethereal scene. Athena, the striking goddess of wisdom with her eyes like stormy seas, and Arachne, a mere mortal girl, but gifted beyond measure when it comes to the loom. You feel a shiver, not from the cold, but from the crackling tension between divine and mortal as they await the verdict on their woven masterpieces. Athena's tapestry is a resplendent representation of godly prowess and celestial chronicles, a veritable Instagram highlight of Mount Olympus glories. You can almost hear the distant clatter of Zeus' lightning bolts in the beautifully spun clouds above. It's a visual toast to divine authority, leaving viewers in awe of the cosmic order and grandeur. Historians still debate whether Athena's work was meant to teach of the gods' magnanimity or simply flaunt their unchallenged status. But what's a little mystery among the tales of eternity, right? In stark contrast, Arachne's tapestry is a bold and buzzing piece filled with snippets of human life, and even a few scandalous scenes of celestial blunders. Think behind-the-scenes blooper reel of godly missteps. Oh yes, Arachne dared to weave stories of the gods' more, shall we say, questionable escapades. Imagine Athena's raised eyebrow as the scenes unfolded before her eyes like a forgotten episode of Realities of the Divine, where deities encounter their own hubris. Or was it a creative license taken a notch too far by our mortal weaver? That's a subject of whimsical debate over ambrosial nectar at divine gatherings. As you stand there, you can feel the palpable silence stretching like the calm before a thunderstorm, everyone holding their breath. Much like that moment you realized you accidentally replied all to an email about your boss's dodgy choice of ties. The stakes are high and the air is electrified not by Zeus's storms, but with the weight of expectation and perhaps a little spice of divine vanity. Athena steps forward, her presence commanding and serene. Her eyes scan both tapestries, each inch examined with the accuracy of a celestial forensic artist. Is there a hint of a smile as she spots Arachne's intricate human tales, recognizing the artistry even through the veil of defiance? Arachne, on the other hand, stands tall if not a tad nervously, probably regretting not spinning up a quick self-portrait titled, "Look, no hubris here." But alas, every thread is soaked in her unyielding confidence and belief in human creativity, mixing a cocktail of mortal ambition and divine audacity. Here's a quirky nugget to ponder. A fringe claim from the lesser-known scrolls of gossipy bards. Athena might have secretly admired Arachne's daring style, akin to modern critics secretly binge-watching reality TV. Imagine the whispers among divine apprentices if this was indeed true. Such are the dissections of myth, perfectly fitting for a cheeky fireside debate or a doctoral thesis. Take your pick. And then, time seems to pause, as if the universe itself decided to hold its breath. You almost expect Cronus, the titan of time himself, to poke his head in and remind everyone of their celestial appointments. Yet all eyes remain fixed, the gravity of judgment curling through the room like an unseen tapestry unweaving slowly through the ages. In this space between breaths, the magnitude of what's at stake straddles the line between cosmic and personal. It's as if both Athena and Arachne are ghosting the truths woven into their works, letting the threads of fate and humility ripple through the timeless fabric of mythology. Here lies the essence of mortal daring against the backdrop of immortal pride. A duel not just of looms and threads, but of dreams, identities, and whispers of an audience that include mortals, gods, and the occasional monster who peeked in for dramatic effect. Now, let's not forget this contest is not just the realm of legend. Did you know the ancient Greeks valued such competitions as the pinnacle of intellectual and cultural display? Rivalry in art, much like those found in the original Olympic Games, provided a platform for ideological expression and celebration of superior craftsmanship. Wrapped in such ideals is the notion that this contest is more than spectator sport. It's a convergence of potential and tradition, weaving the sprawling tapestry of humanity's ceaseless dialogue with the universe. But I digress. The scrolls of human history have their own crafty threads to follow. So here you are, in this golden pause, a microcosm of narrative intensity stretched to the limits, a divine soap opera pre-Netflix, awaiting the seal of finality. The air thrums with the prospect of enlightenment or doom, depending on which tapestry calls to your own beliefs about art and creation. And admit it, you've got your favorite contestant picked out, haven't you? It's like the finale of The Great Weave Off, but with stakes so high they practically play Zeus's harp. As the whisper of a goddess carries through the room, perhaps you catch the scent of ancient judgment, more potent than your daily coffee, but less effective at waking you up, considering the soothing hypnotic spellcast of myth and narrative. This story doesn't just end or begin, it stretches on, evolving with each retelling, carrying audiences like you through time on a loom woven not just of threads, but of whispers, beliefs, and jokes about divine fashion choices. Thus, the stage is set for mortal and divine alike to confront the weight of their creations, as the verdict teeters on the precipice of silence, ready to etch its way into the annals of lore. Decide who may for the winner be, or let the musings slip into sleep, your mind cradled by the endless thoughts of tapestries untold. Feel the air thicken with suspense as you approach the moment of reckoning. Picture the scene. Athena, cool and composed as the night air even when confronted with an unusually tough stain. A goddess accustomed to accolades. Only now she faces the unexpected. And then there's Arachne, eyes full of defiance and a touch of trepidation, standing before her masterpiece as if challenging the universe itself. It's a clash that would make even the most hardened Greek chorus singer pause in awe, and likely tune an instrument for effect. As the dust settles from the frantic weaving, the tapestries hang side by side, casting intriguing shadows in the fading light. Each tapestry tells a story so vivid, you'd swear it holds echoes of a loom that whispered secrets only a divine audience could truly appreciate. The weavings carry an implicit question: whose artistry reigns supreme? In the corner of this grand scene, an imaginary panel of judges, think Simon Cowell but with toga and laurel wreath, ponders the unthinkable. Is the mortal's defiance a spark of genius or pure folly? Looking closely, you notice how Athena's tapestry swirls with mythic grandeur. It's like flipping through VIP pages of ancient history, scenes filled with her guiding heroes, bestowing wisdom, retaining a poise reminiscent of those celebrity chefs you watch so avidly despite grim realities of your own kitchen stove. It's incredible, a showcase of divine stories meticulously threaded with iridescent divine threads. Meanwhile, Arachne's work, A Rebel's Symphony, uses earthly dyes and human struggles so potently that it pulsates with relatability. You could almost frame it next to today's tabloids, assuming they'd print anything meaningful, of course. Historians still argue whether this contest was, with apologies to the loom industry, a fair comparison. Does art created under divine influence hold the same authenticity or validity as the product of sheer human will? It's almost akin to comparing the dazzling performances of office karaoke night to polished Broadway productions. Yet here lies the depth of Arachne's challenge. Remember our first little chat about the grandeur of Mount Olympus? Now, consider how such heavenly imprints on Athena's tapestry might blind a mortal admirer with divine nostalgia. Yet, Arachne's tapestry is like discovering that oddly satisfying DIY hack on the internet, refreshingly inventive, with hints of audacity that make you nod in approval. Perhaps there's more truth in her human portrayal than those heavily curated cosmic tales. An unexpected silence falls as Athena steps closer to the tapestry of mortal creation. Her eyelids flicker, not in derision, but in a flicker of reluctant recognition. She notes details, those intricate borders and clever symbolic nods to the very flaws of the deities themselves, perhaps pecking at the pride she wears like a well-starched cape. Imagine a silent audience, awaiting drama as juicy as the freshest Olympic gossip. It's a turning point, balancing admiration of craft with the sting of pride. Admiration alone, however, cannot decide such outcomes. Much like those debates of ancient philosophers under the olive trees or a casual bipartisan tea session with a side of metaphysics, there is a balance to be weighed, a choice between punitive justice and an offering of grace. And as with those mortals prone to a tiny white lie in a job interview, Humility might just hold more sway than ego in this critical moment. So, Athena, protector of wisdom and bearer of impossible choices, faces the age-old question that many Olympian lunch debates must have circled around. Should she censure Arachne for her audacity, acknowledging that razor-thin line between confidence and brash hubris? Or should she honor the mortal's undeniable talent? Maybe chastise, but gently, with an acknowledgement that could echo into mortal folklore as a lasting legacy? Encased in contemplative sorcery, or perhaps just overwhelmed by the prospect of doling out an eternal punishment resembling a reality show exit scene, Athena deliberates. Somewhere in all of this ponderous tension lies a choice that could outlast marble columns and chiseled scrolls. It's a scene so rich, you'd almost expect Zeus to pop in with popcorn, making cheeky comments between chews. But alas, he's got his own schedule filled with Thunderbolt seminars and management meetings with Hades. Dear listener, as you bask in the shadows of this mythological courtroom, bear in mind the ongoing debate. Were these contests truly born of superiority, or do they reflect a hidden tenderness for moral growth, a teaching point seated in narrative? Historians chew over this like a riddle wrapped in enigma, girded with ripe olives of analytical delight. Outside, the quivering light dims as the sun winks mischievously behind the distant Mediterranean horizon, signaling a moment of decision. Arachne's fate, poised on a precipice between mythic condemnation and transformative opportunity, rests not just in supernatural hands, but within the fibers of storytelling continuum. As the decision ripples through the ages, consider for a moment how this myth reflects our own stories, our tussles with creativity and critique, each taught with lessons of humility woven through experience. Arachne herself stands silent, her hands still smeared with the faint residue of passionate artistry, much like your own late-night DIY hobby results perhaps. Would you recall this tale amidst knit yarn, or as metaphors spun late into the evening under a winking star-strewn sky? There, in the subtle dusk of history, she awaits a verdict, and her immense contribution to myth is as much immortal as the tapestry she dared to challenge. And with that, allow the whispers of antiquity to deepen your understanding. Let the echoes murmur softly as they linger like a gentle breeze, touching the tale's ongoing resonance. In the stillness following the great contest, with shuttles paused and looms quiet, the air thickens with the unresolved tension of mortal hubris and divine pride. You can almost feel the whisper of a chill breeze rustling through Arachne's completed tapestry, an artwork of human stories that speaks of mortal defiance. Now, as you find yourself on the edge of a vast transformation, you wonder what wisdom lies in the air as fate takes its next steps. With a tilt of her head, Athena's eyes pierce through the silence, examining every inch of Arachne's defiant creation. One part admiration, one part divine responsibility. Historians still argue whether Athena truly intended mercy or simply acted out of the relentless pride of Olympians. But the result? It's something straight out of a mythological manual, a metamorphosis as permanent as the stars carved into night skies. And just like that, with a sweep of divine magic, no need for stage curtains or dramatic sound effects, Arachne is enveloped in threads of her own making. Her mortal form diminishes, unraveling like an ancient tale winding into its own end and beginning. Imagine spinning yarn made not just of fibers, but of laughter, tears, and stories that tug at the edges of dreams. Suddenly, Arachne, the once boastful weaver, blurs into something new, a creature tasked with an eternity of weaving. From the crowd, a gasp emerges. You can almost sense the slickness of a bead of sweat crawling down an observer's brow in shared astonishment and a dash of apprehension. Mortals often avoid eye contact with divine outcomes, after all. But this moment, this, is a tapestry within itself. Arachne transforms into the very first spider, forever spinning, forever weaving. A poetic justice of continual motion, reminiscent of how you sometimes feel scrolling through endless lists of suggestions when Netflix becomes your Friday night oracle. In terms of legacy, Arachne's fate isn't bound merely by silk threads, but by the cautionary tales humans love to spin. Her name, Arachne, perfect etymological bliss, gives us the word arachnid, a little gift from mythology's vocabulary treasure chest. As you picture this new eight-legged form, there she sits, providing spiders everywhere with an origin story just as complex as any genealogical chart. You could say this is history's way of redeeming those unexpected spider guests caught creeping across your living room floor. Now, the topic of Arachne's transformation has sparked debates and fireside chats over centuries. Some might argue it's a harsh punishment, eternal weaving for a simple boast, but cultural contexts, much like your favorite sweater, unravel differently depending on who's holding the thread. Was it really justice served or an act of creative genius from Athena, giving Arachne a way to showcase her weaving forevermore? Scholars love a good debate, so they ponder on, as if untangling the Gordian knot of mythological morality. The wheel of Greek myth thinly disguises its lessons, spinning stories into yarns of grandeur and caution. For Arachne, her spider form is less a curse than a cosmic, eternal commission, replete with limitless silk threading between fragrant garden hedges and beneath your attic eaves, forging connections across time itself. Here, the mundane meets the marvelous. In this web of innovation spun from the risks of exaggerated pride, a tale older than recorded time, older than your least favorite recipe passed down in family cookbooks. Imagine, for a second, the thrill of discovering that this transformation isn't merely an end but a new way forward, a blueprint for creativity immortalized in silk strands. Those twinkling nighttime webs caught in October moonlight should remind you that they contain traces of stories just waiting to be told, one silken fiber at a time. And if you find yourself empathizing with Arachne or pondering the tangled symbiosis of creation and consequence, then you're merely part of a grand tradition that tickles the philosophical fancy, both past and present. The impact of Arachne's transformation extends beyond the bewitched border of mythos into the real world. During the Middle Ages, the world's first spider lore spread like whispers through cobblestone streets, branding webs as portals of fate. The association with spiders extended into craft and the ever-evolving art of textile weaving. From tapestries in grand halls of antiquity to the nostalgia of your beloved knitted scarf, the notion of art emerging from threads is Arachne's true legacy. In a medieval twist, spider silk became a part of tapetographical knowledge, an old practice where spiders wove special bookmarks into paper for the discerning medieval book enthusiast. Imagine an arachnid artisan creating margins of knowledge at the cusp of a candle's light, certainly trendier than a post-it note, yet woefully underutilized nowadays. Meanwhile, Renaissance artists revived Grecian myths, and, naturally, Arachne often scuttled onto the canvas, reminding us how intertwined myth and art can be. The threads of Arachne's tale of change resonate with the familiar discord between talent and triumph we all face, a commitment to leave something meaningful behind. Whether you're knitting a sweater or piecing together another 1,000-piece puzzle, perhaps there's a sliver of Arachne's ingenuity inside your efforts, a reminder that flaws and genius sometimes share a common thread. So here you are, seated as comfortably as one can be in a dance of creativity and consequence, reflecting on the myth of a weaver eternally entwined in the loom of life itself. Let it be your nighttime companion, a story warp-wound with truth, wisdom, and the wondrous folly of mortals trying their best to mimic gods. As you ponder this legend in the cozy depths of your imagination, each thread in the mythology of Arachne vibrates with messages of transformation and creativity, a silken guide across time and ages. Rest in the comfort of these tales, dear listener, as somewhere, in a quiet corner of your room, a spider might just be embarking on its own thread of destiny, with story, history, and curiosity woven into every delicate, shining strand. As the echoes of Athena and Arachne's tale weave through the corridors of history, you're reminded that their story is far more than just an ancient pastime. It becomes a vibrant thread stitched into the fabric of human culture. You find yourself reflecting on the resounding lessons of this myth, particularly its role as a cautionary tale against the perils of hubris. Imagine, if you will, ancient Greeks gathered around a crackling fire as the voice of a storyteller washes over them, their rapt attention hanging on every word. This story, like many Greek myths, speaks not only of divine retribution, but also of the fragile balance between human ambition and respect for the greater forces at play. In the world of Greek mythology, hubris was more than just arrogance. It was an unforgivable affront to the gods. For the ancient Greeks, Arachne's tale embodied the risk of overstepping one's bounds, a theme that resonates even today in our modern narratives. Whether it's a corporate mogul's fall from grace or a celebrity's social media faux pas, echoes of Arachne remind us that a little humility goes a long way. After all, we can't all be Tony Stark with a charm mixer on full blast, can we? Historians still argue whether Arachne's transformation into a spider was a simple tale of punishment or a deeper ode to the enduring nature of human art and ingenuity. Some suggest that the transformation illustrates nature's cycle of creation and destruction, where the spider continues to weave, much like artists who fuel their souls with dreams and never cease to create, no matter the form they take. Others debate that Arachne's metamorphosis serves as a metaphor for resilience, where even in her new form, she finds a way to thrive, spinning webs that echo her talent eternally. Meanwhile, historical records indicate that weaving was considered a quintessentially female occupation in ancient Greece. It's fascinating to imagine how Arachne's defiance might have resonated with women of her time, inspiring them to push the boundaries of their accepted societal roles. Picture it, a clandestine weaving circle, discussing Arachne and Athena as not merely characters from a story, but role models encouraging them to seek liberation through artistry. The myth of Arachne also serves as a mirror revealing human creativity and its divine connection. As viewers of the night sky, those ancient astronomers naming the constellations above, our ancestors saw their stories reflected in the stars. The legacy of Greek myths is vast, their stories echoing through art, literature, and philosophy. It's like the mythological gift that keeps on giving, much like your Netflix subscription, just with more togas and fewer cliffhangers. A quirky tidbit to stitch into your mental tapestry. There was actually an ongoing dispute in the Renaissance over whether Arachne should be viewed more as a victim or as an artist misunderstood by the divine. Renaissance artists and authors often grappled with themes of individualism against divine power, tapping into Arachne's narrative as a vessel for their own creative explorations. Renaissance texts and artwork depicted Arachne not just as a humble mortal overreaching her station, but as an artist pursuing truth through her craft. Imagine, weaving was the ultimate rebellion. The timeless resonance of this tale is evident in how it continues to inspire creators across all mediums. From literature to films and video games, the dynamic struggle between mortal talent and divine intervention has become a trope that calls on the imagination to soar beyond limits, while still reminding us of our place within the universe. It's a gentle nudge to remember humility amidst the heights of creativity, which can be as elaborate as a French haute couture gown or as whimsical as a DIY crochet cardigan. In a way, every time you pick up a thread and begin to weave, whether metaphorically or literally, you participate in a ritual as old as time itself. Just as Arachne's story echoes through the ages, your actions are also bound to create ripples that reach far into the future, perhaps even inspiring someone centuries from now to marvel at the interconnectedness of human experiences. It's as if each of us is perpetually weaving into the grand tapestry of life, an intricate pattern where past, present, and future converge. And so, the tale of Athena and Arachne does not rest. It continues to live and breathe, urging us to ponder the boundaries of our abilities and the humility to recognize them. The threads of their story are interwoven with our daily lives, a testament to the enduring power of myth. As we reach the end of this weaving odyssey, you might find yourself lulled into contemplation, gently guided by the ancient wisdom whispering through the halls of history. The beating heart of the story is this: creativity is a double-edged sword. It holds the power to construct and deconstruct, to connect and divide. Arachne, even in her defiance, left a legacy of artistry and tenacity that survived her. In many ways, we all carry a bit of Arachne's spirit within us, challenging norms, creating art, and leaving our mark on the world. So when you're next faced with a creative challenge, remember Arachne's web, a delicate reminder that skill, when woven with humility, creates something lasting, something beautiful. If you listen closely, you might still hear the gentle hum of a loom, the whispers of ancient ploys, and the echoes of forgotten gods. Arachne and Athena share with us their timeless dance, a dance that spans epochs, darting and intertwining countless lives with its silken threads, whispering tales of wisdom and folly through the winds of time. Greek myths, much like your favorite pair of pajamas, have a way of settling into the cozy corners of our collective cultural consciousness. No matter how many times you've heard them, they seem to always have a little more thread left to unravel. You might wonder how these tales manage to weave themselves so seamlessly into every age and culture, like the mythical beasts that supposedly inspired the craze for garden gnomes. Well, buckle up, metaphorically, of course, as we're here to relax and not embark on a roller coaster ride through Tartarus. Part of the charm of Greek myths lies in their uncanny ability to mingle divinity with humanity, wisdom with folly, and art with nature, all within the whimsical bounds of a single narrative. You see, these ancient stories have been told and retold, embroidered with details as intricate as Athena's divine tapestries themselves, capturing the imaginations of countless generations. They speak to universal human experiences and emotions, from love and ambition to jealousy and pride. Despite their origins in a world dominated by gods with very human-like quirks and flaws, their narratives transcend time, echoing through art, literature, and even the occasional pop song. Yes, even your playlist might secretly host modern muses. Consider Athena and Arachne's tale, a story about creativity and consequence that resonates just as much now as it did in ancient Greece. Historians still argue whether Arachne's transformation into a spider signifies punishment for hubris or a more nuanced symbol of the endurance of human creativity. Ironic, isn't it, given spiders' eternal weaving? This debate ties the myth to modern discussions on the intersections of art, talent, and the divine spark. Plus, it's a nifty explanation next time you find yourself with Spider-Man envy. In the realm of history, it's fascinating to note that Greek myths have inspired explorers, archaeologists, and even mischievous opportunists alike. The early archaeologists, those antiquarians with a penchant for lost cities and treasure, used these stories as maps, leading them to real-world discoveries, much like Ariadne's thread guiding Theseus through the labyrinth. Their tales are sewn into the very fabric of our history, determining the names of the constellations twinkling above us, and even some surprisingly precise horoscopes. And then there are those quirky tales told around the sandals of Greek forums, stories of satyrs who couldn't keep a straight face or nymphs with a penchant for mischief. These tales enrich the myths, offering a side of whimsy, like the sidebar notes in a particularly entertaining academic paper. They bring the tales to life in ways that textbooks often fail to capture, ingeniously convincing us that these gods and mortals, for all their glory, their grandeur, and their variously misguided decisions, weren't so different from us after all. Another aspect of their enduring appeal is how Greek myths encourage us to gaze beyond the veil of the present, inviting us to imagine a world interwoven with the divine. Take Mount Olympus, for example, the original home of the gods, where the elite 12 lounged among the clouds like an exclusive club. The stories imbue these places with a sense of palpable wonder, the kind that makes you want to look up to the sky and half expect mighty Zeus, lightning bolt in hand, to be surveying the world below, readying himself to leap into action, or at least to chuckle like Santa Claus at the foibles of humankind. This legendary narrative landscape also serves as a stage for discussions about morality, power, and the delicate balance between them. Interactive exhibits at museums carry that legacy, with multi-sensory experiences that make you feel like you're eavesdropping on the muses. Recent debates among scholars delve into whether these myths serve primarily as entertainment, social regulation, or even divine propaganda, like an ancient version of influencers, but with less sponsored content and more actual transformations. What about the tale's lighter side, you ask? Well, the myths are also a ripe source of humor, whether it's the mischievous antics of Hermes or Zeus's frequent romantic escapades, which historians often gloss over with a knowing smile. This humor, intended or accidental, frames the myths, making them relatable as they mirror the unpredictable roller coaster of life. Lastly, we mustn't forget about the starring role these myths play in the fine arts. From the paintings on ancient Greek ceramics to the colossal marble statues in Renaissance galleries, the myths provided inspiration aplenty. They were the muse behind many a masterpiece and could do the same for your latest Pinterest project, guaranteed to spark more joy than a dozen Olympian feasts. Imagine, if you will, a world where excessively prideful weavers are transformed into spiders and Neptune still holds sway over your pool filter's idiosyncrasies. Greek myths encourage us to dream and find the fantastic within the everyday, a reminder that our narratives, whether whispered under starlit skies or in the noise of the modern world, are the threads that connect us to the past and weave us into the tapestry of time. So, the next time you stumble upon a mythic figure on your travels through a museum or find a reference to Zeus's less-than-stellar decisions in your favorite sitcom, take a moment to appreciate the timeless quality of these stories. After all, they are tales that never sleep, continuously spinning their webs of enchantment through art, culture, and a legacy of wonder that endures like the quiet yet unyielding song of sirens calling to the hearts and minds of dreamers across the centuries. Remember, much like with the legends themselves, we are part of a narrative that the centuries have woven, with a little help from some divine thread to add that extra sparkle. As you settle into a cozy embrace, ready to drift into the world of dreams, picture yourself lying beneath the ancient tapestry of stars, each one a lingering whisper of the myths we've just journeyed through. The night sky, our ever-present storyteller, wraps you in its soft, comforting darkness, much like Athena's gentle wisdom cradling a curious mind. You're at a crossroads where time has no meaning, and every star above murmurs tales from long-forgotten ages. It's soothing, like those times when your grandma insisted that her 10-minute story didn't dodge into her lifelong biography. Spoiler alert, it always did. But isn't it the long, winding tales that leave us dreamy-eyed and ready for the comfort of sleep? Feel the cool breeze that carries the scent of olive trees from Mount Olympus, where gods and goddesses once pondered the affairs of mortals. Historians debate whether these tales were warnings or invitations to reflect on their own lives, like that time you realized maybe leaving homework for tomorrow wasn't wisdom but procrastination. Remember those closet monsters that turned out to be hangers? Just like that, myths unravel what's imagined and what's real. And somewhere between the chatter and the stars, are you more curious, comforted, or both? The warm, gentle threads of the night begin to envelop you. In the serenity of this hours-old tale, even the most profound controversies end without discord, the loom finally set aside. Feel the echoes of Athena and Arachne's contest fade into an ethereal hush. It's like watching reruns of your favorite shows. No matter how often you've seen the episodes, they always end with the reassurance all's well. What's history, after all, but one lengthy series of narratives, sometimes tangled, other times neatly aligned? It's fascinating to think some ancient Greeks believed spiders spinning webs weren't mere insects, but a metaphor spun into the world, much like how we spin tales to downplay the horror of forgetting a crucial presentation note. You drift above mortal worries, floating on the tapestry of mythologies, feeling an ancient warmth under the silver light of lunar beams. Recognizing the fabric of these stories woven with themes of wisdom, folly, creativity, and humility, elements that narrate the bigger stories of human existence. Archaeologists still argue whether this myth's ending promotes silence or conversation, but perhaps such deliberations become faint when you hover near slumber's edge, where everything and nothing matters all at once. And now, picture a softening world. The stars seem to twinkle a good night, their once vivid stories now merely lullabies, and the firmament stretches around you like a gentle whisper. The myths we've traversed wind softly into the recesses of dreams, leaving only a faint trail like a soft cloud dissolving against the dusky sky. Feel the slowness of time, the melting of moments into a singular, sweet breath of night. A sense of heaviness draws you deeper into your bed, a sanctuary for these tales that never sleep. You feel held, cherished by the universe, a vast tapestry unheard by daylight, but always humming beneath the surface, much like the secret ingredient in your grandma's pie, which in our hearts, we suspect might just have been love all along. The cadence of ancient wisdom threads into your thoughts as they unravel, fading gracefully into the grip of dreams. The outline of the long-lost Aegean coast might form, or is that just a nod to your dreamy imagination? However it appears, let it settle. Listen closely, and perhaps you'll hear the final whispers of a tale spun not just as a caution, but as an art, understanding, much like night air itself, both separate from and entwined with the daytime truths. You're woven into this narrative tapestry, a part of continuing stories stretched endlessly against the canopy of your dreams. With a final serene breath, stars beckon, shadows whisper, and the myths cradle you into sleep's embrace. All fragments form into a soft, sustaining chant, lulling your consciousness where even the most restless minds find calm. In this boundless sky where history and tranquility meet, rest well under the warmth of eternal stories, as dreams gently unfurl and the embrace of ancient wisdom accompanies you into dreamland. Whispering beneath the moonlit heavens, what's left is the drawn-out warmth of time, stories, and drift, all guiding you into peaceful sleep.